Graham Reed. It's my pleasure and absolute privilege to be here today to talk to you and to introduce Marlon, who is kindly, and I think, given that this is a Friday afternoon, he should be doing other things like resting up, but he has kindly agreed that he'll come and answer some questions for us. I thought the format would be very simple. I just want to say a few words because I've had the very, very good fortune to have heard this album in its entirety, and believe me, it is absolutely extraordinary. I just want to say a few words at the beginning, then I'll get Marlon to come out. I would like to just briefly ask Marlon something about the music on the album and...
Really kind words, right? Thank you. It's really nice.
My pleasure. Marlon, as I said before, you probably heard, I've had the privilege of hearing the album from start to finish, and any number of times I've just been playing it over and over and over. I do want to talk to you about the music, just the music aspect, before we even talk about the lyrics. It seems to me that the music on this album comes from almost like a different time. It's not of this time and space, place even. For example, the last piece you just played. That to me, and I said this to you last night, that sounds like one of those great lost Waiata. I could imagine Tui Teka and Missy on stage singing that.
Great, yeah. Well, it's tapping into that nostalgia nostalgia is one of the great forces in music, I think. So it resonates with everybody at a level that I'm really, you don't have to talk about it. It's just, it's a language that everyone feels really deeply.
When I've heard this album, I do hear very much something that I think came from, we could say before Beatlemania. There's a sensibility about the music which seems grounded in something like late 50s ballads or whatever, but also a very subtle but evident Pacific feel. Now, am I putting too much into that, or?
No, like all Māoris, I like to sing, so it's just, and it really is. I'm sure it comes from something, some sort of influence, be it genetic or part of my upbringing. But
when you're arranging these songs, were you doing that consciously, or do you think it just sort of comes through you?
I think a little bit of both. I definitely there's certain hallmarks of Pacifica harmony that I really always strive for, it seems. So there's a little, and then just generally, if you start doing that enough, then you just can't stop doing that. So
right.
So it just ends up in that realm.
There's a consistency of vision across this album, I think. Can you just run us through, because my understanding is that you wrote a lot of songs, and we'll talk about why you wrote all these songs in a very short period of time, came back home, went to Littleton, and then of course you took them. Can you just talk us through that little bit about coming back home and going back to Littleton and just kind of writing and thinking there?
Yeah, well, I think, I've never been an artist who writes on the road. I never, I don't factor that into my energy allotment, so it never comes up. And so when I go home, it's a real trigger for me. It's like, okay, you're home now. It's time to try doing the thing that you do when you're at home, which is write songs.
You don't keep notes on the road or little ideas?
My phone's full of a lot of strange memos that I don't understand anymore. Yeah. But then they're there to reinterpret at some point when I.
Right. Okay. It's going to be an open secret, and we need to talk about this. What do we call it? The oldest in the room, because people know about the breakup, right, and all that. This album has beautiful songs of love and heartbreak, notes of vengeance, I think we could say every now and again, and anger. Talk us through that, because that strikes me as the thread that holds a lot of this stuff together. And I'm interested in, is this you processing things but then stepping back?
Well, yeah, this is the first time that I've ever truly used music as therapy, I would do it, it's always been a pleasure to sing, and it's always made me feel safe, but writing music as therapy is something I've never really done. And to be honest, there were 2 years, in fact, the last 2 years before I wrote these songs, I'd written 1.5 songs, after putting out that album and touring it heaps and running the circuit. So I needed something to happen. And it did, and you know, it's something that it's taken me a long time to accept, is that I've got to allow my ego and you know, and confront it myself and say, hey, this is something I wanted, and it didn't happen. And you know, they become definite parameters for your own ego, and so it really just opened up a whole world for me to be able to give a comprehensive, or you know, a cohesive body of work to that feeling.
The songs are almost like a prism, you know, that you're looking at a relationship from kind of all different angles.
Yeah, and you know, it was I wrote 16 songs in about a month, just around a month, and it was you know, it was one of those things where you sort of it's like you just committed some sort of axe murder, and then you wake up the next morning and you're covered in blood and you have no idea why. You know, but it was a month, so it's a metaphor.
I'm going to throw this open to the floor, but just one last one in that regard. Given that these are very personal songs, is there a moment where the song takes on a completely separate life from you, that you're not in that moment when you're singing it, and you can just put it, you know, a bit further away from you?
Yeah, and that's something I've always done. Is, you know, I've always felt the distance between me and myself and my songs, and so it's you're instantly in third person as soon as they're down, as soon as they're committed to the world in any way. So you've got to keep chasing them and either find a new way in, or remember why it was, you know, why it was written in the first place.
Do you have to sometimes go back to that moment on stage? Or?
It's hard. It's really hard to do, but you got to reinvent it somehow. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think we should throw it open to the floor, ladies and gentlemen. Does anybody have any particular questions? I know that you're kind of limited because you've only heard this set.
Haven't heard much.
Yeah. Can I introduce your waiter for this evening?
Hi Marlon, I'm Simon.
You've got to do this the
got to
formal
do this?
way, Simon.
Okay, righto. Yeah, we just heard the 4 songs, and it was quite a range of styles on the first listening to them. I know the media release talks about this album for you being a new musical venture. I think that's or new musical territory being explored. Can you give us, in your own words, where you see how you would describe the style that you're presenting to us on the album?
It's a really slippery thing. You know, it's there's no. I was somewhat mystified at people calling my music country, you know, and now no one knows what to say about it, least of all me. I don't know. It's I guess I've been listening to a lot of Scott Walker. There's, you know, it definitely ventures into the art pop realm, I guess. You know, these are all words that I'm extremely uncomfortable using. Yeah.
Never apologise for saying the word Scott Walker, though.
No. Yeah, I feel very comfortable with that.
Yes, indeed. A voice.
Sorry.
Simon again?
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, I guess depending on the experience of the person who's listening, they hear different things, don't they?
Exactly. Like, yeah. There's and that's why it's always safest to stay kind of hush about labels are there, or genre labels are there for communication between listeners. You know, I use it. You know, we need these words to navigate the world of music, but only as listeners. You know, it's not there's nothing intentional about it as a creative process.
Right, who's next?
Anybody else?
Karen's got a question.
I'm Karen.
Hey, Karen.
How are you? I've only heard those 4, and yesterday I'd only heard a single that you released, which just about had me sobbing in a heap on the floor. But are there any, I'll find out tonight I guess, but are there any upbeat songs on this album?
Well, yeah, there are. The angry ones are upbeat. you know, I sort of put out that song Vampire Again a couple of months ago as a sort of a red herring, because I was like, because you know, initially we were talking about putting that on the album, and it was like this, it's just not going to work. It's not going to fit. You got to sort of be comfortable in with what you're portraying, and so it's definitely a downer of an album. But there's a couple of songs that you can sort of, you know, just block out the lyrics and just sort of dance to.
We all know sad songs are the best. I said that to someone. Like they are. And the other question I had too was just musically. As I say, I'd only heard that single yesterday. That sort of sweeping cinematic arrangement in that single. Is that something that came from you or the guy that produced the album? I just wonder, because musically it seems like quite a departure. It's so lush, there's like restraint, but it's epic as well. And I just wondered musically where that direction came from.
Well, it really helps having Dave Kahn, who can just sort of layer violins up, and you just sort of go and get into a hole and you come out you know, half an hour later with this incredible sounding string arrangement. So, and you know, I've always been pretty lucky to have Dave around, and you know, so if you've got the tools, then it sort of becomes a, you know, a non sequitur after a while. But you know, it's going back to that idea of nostalgia. You know, all of those sounds really just lock us into a certain place and time, and it's a really effective tool, I think. You know, and I just like the way violins sound too. Come on, Marty.
Hello, Marlon.
Hey, Marty. How are you?
I think last time I saw you was about a year ago in Austin, Texas.
ACL, yeah.
And you were dancing around on stage with Willie Nelson.
I was, yeah. That was a good day.
At the ACL festival. So I guess my question would be, going through all that process of doing all that kind of international stuff and rubbing shoulders with other musicians, how does that affect what you're doing with your music?
It's a bit of a playground, you know. I don't know if, in terms of inspiration, I just feel like listening to anything is inspiring, you know, and I mean anything. Like seeing a busker play knocking on heaven's door really badly is inspiring, because you go, I don't ever want to do that. It's one thing I'm never going to do. But in terms of, yeah, if you're talking about these sort of big legends of music, you know, it's just a playground. You know, the little boy in me gets excited when I, you know, see these people play. But it's, you know, the level of excitement is definitely suspiciously, you know, its own thing. You don't want to get too, yeah, I don't think it really influences the music. It's just exciting. Gus, I think you've got a question there. What was that question? You put your hand up there. You put your hand up. You put your hand up, Gus.
Gus was going to ask you. You're on quite a marathon tour. I know that you've done these tours before, but I'm just always curious about how you keep grounded and level on a tour like that, emotionally grounded, and you know the temptations out there. Or do you just fall into temptation? how do you do that?
Some I fall into. Certain other ones I try and stay away from. But it really helps having you know, 3 other dudes around with you that you can just moan at. You know, they serve as mirrors for your own sanity, and you know that as long as you're okay, you must somehow be okay too. And if everyone feels that way, then you end up having a pretty good time.
Do you kind of have protocols that you go through on the road just to keep yourself level?
Nah.
No, not really. No.
Not really. I don't know, rules are good. Rules and protocols are really good, but I'm not very good at them at all, so it's something I need to work on to survive, I think. especially next year. Next year's going to be rough.
Next year's a long year. Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Sarah's got a question.
Hello, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Long time no see.
Yeah, last time was Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I was last in the country.
With the album, and obviously I've only heard the 4 tracks, and because it's quite a personal journey, do you want the listener to listen to it in a linear fashion, from beginning to end?
Yeah, I do. You know, and not that I feel that there's something that I strongly want them to glean off it, but I feel like it's, you know, that's part of the work that an album does in people's minds anyway, and if that's happening, if there's some sort of shape forming in a listener's head, then that's, you know, that's the beautiful mystery of music. So, you know, there are definitely little sort of runs of songs on the album that mean something pretty firmly to me. But you know, that's once you put an album out, then as long as there's these sort of rough sort of guidelines and as long as there's a little bit of room for listeners to build their own story, then you know, then you've done a good job, I think.
Sorry, the second question I had was, with the composition of some of the songs, especially the latest single, you throw in some really interesting notes just in certain places.
Yeah,
that just go off kilter all of a sudden, but it just for a few split seconds, but it's quite endearing.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, you gotta build the house and then put a few little quirks in it, just to, you know, that's what people fall in love with, and it's creating really arbitrary lines and then just playing with things a little bit is really those are the things that people come back to and you know, that sort of stick out more than anything. So it's a good little trick, I think.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I've got one more if I may.
Simon again.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up on that mention of Springsteen just there, who's among other things known for his stagecraft, I guess. I just wondered how much you enjoy that side of it, the live performance and the crafting a show for the people in front of you, as much as presenting the music just for its own sake, the performing side of it.
Yeah, it's a real thrill, you know. That's one of the one of the dangers of touring, and really the only thing that really gets you through is you can be just completely wrecked, you know, hungover, you know, and haven't slept for days, and you go on stage and you come back off and you feel like you could just be awake for days and days, and it's, you know, I feel really lucky that I get to feel that, and I wonder what life would be like if I didn't have that. But it's a trap, but it's the only thing that'll get you across the line too.
Thank you.
Hello, how are you?
How you going, Marlon? Good, thanks. I was just wondering, this journey you've been on has not only been one that's musical, but kind of like a self-awareness as well. Are there any learnings you can share with us after recording the new album? Or anything that you've kind of discovered?
Well, yeah, you know, it's like I said to Graham before, it's tapping into my own ego is a really really interesting thing, you know, my own, like everything about myself as a person, in the world, and, you know, with all these other people, my own sense of my sexuality, my own, and in love, and my own pride as a man, you know, all of that stuff really came up for me, and so I remember a couple of years ago talking about, I was with Delaney Davidson and I said something, we were talking about pride, and I was saying I'm not a very prideful person, and he like shot me down. He's like, you're one of the most prideful people I know, and it shook me a lot. So it's like, okay, what am I missing about myself, you know, like, and so for me this album has been it's helped me define myself as a person in a big way.
Yeah, you talk about the performance side of things, and you enjoy that. Is Is it emotional for you, like when you embark on an international tour? Is it an emotional process, or is it like, do you view it as just a job to get on with it, you know, do that?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's definitely both things at once. You know, there's something sickeningly grand about the whole palaver. You know, you're flying all over the world, you know, singing about how sad you are or how happy you are. It's weird. It's a really weird thing to do. But and at the same time, every aspect of it, every element is so you know, par for the course. It becomes definitely a job. But then when you step back, you just kind of and take it all in. You have to go, oh wow, this is a weird thing to be doing.
Thanks.
All right.
Do we have